Hey guys, I just want to make a quick Diona guide. I've really been enjoying her. I've pulled her the day that she dropped. I have her max constellation. I've been using her non-stop since then, running her alongside my child. And I gotta say, I think she's a great new addition to the game and can fill multiple roles that your team may be lacking, especially if you don't have a built-up cryo user. Before we get into this though, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe as any interaction really helps my channel grow. Alright, so getting into it, let's talk about her role. I think Diona perfectly fits, or actually, I think Diona doesn't perfectly fit any role. I think she fits two roles really well. And so, one role, I think she could be a very good DPS support, and another role, I think she's a very good healer. It just really depends on how you want to build her out and what is important for you. It's similar to how Bennett is. However, Bennett does have the benefit of having a lot quicker cooldown on his E. Speaking of E's, let's talk about her abilities real quick. Going over it, the first ability she has is Icy Paw. You just tap your E to fire out 2 Icy Paws that deal damage and create a shield for you. The shield is stronger the more paws actually hit their target. If you hold it, you have an increased cooldown, but you shoot out 5 paws, and the shield that you create has an additional 75% damage absorption bonus. That could be a really strong shield. And really can help you protect your team, especially if you're going against cryo enemies. Since against cryo, the shield has a 250% cryo damage absorption bonus. It does cause your character to be affected by cryo at the point of formation, but only lasts for a short duration. So normally it doesn't last long enough for me to suffer any other effects. I don't really notice myself getting frozen nearly as much as I do like while running Barbara. But you do get suffer the cryo effect, and it can chain off of an enemy's element as well. I just don't notice it nearly as much. Next we have her signature mix. She kicks out her signature mix drink, create the large AoE effect, where any ally in the effect is healed, where any enemy is takes cryo damage. Really useful to throw out there. Just stand in the middle of it. If you're able to pull enemies in toward you, pull them in, make them take damage. It's really good for melee characters to really just set themselves up in the middle of there, so all the enemies flock you inside. It's also really good for ranged characters because as long as you're staying in there, you'll be pretty protected from melee units as they come closer. You'll be able to trigger elemental reactions really quickly just by turning your attention onto them. Then her Ascension 1 talent, anyone who has shielded by the Icy Paw shield has their movement speed increased and their stamina consumption decreased. It's really great because it lets you move around the map a lot faster. Well, whenever you're trying to sprint, you do have that less stamina consumption. I do believe this does stack with any character who already has a passive that reduces stamina consumption, since this is a very general ability. This even reduces your stamina while swimming, while gliding is not directly tied to your movement speed. So it's actually really helpful while traversing if you just want to throw up the shield while you're running around. Next we have Drunkard's Farce. Any opponent who enters the AoE of your signature drink at Ascension rank 4 or higher actually has their attack decreased by 10% for 15 seconds. Again, this is really strong. You could really take the enemy's attack down while having that shield up, so you're really minimizing the incoming damage while still maximizing your health by making sure that your shield's tanking as much as possible. And then finally she has the cooking passive, just double the chance to cook certain products, really similar to Barbara and Jean. Cool. Now that we talked about what her talents are, let's kind of talk about what her gameplay loop looks like. Let's just wait for her abilities to come off cooldown. And for me, her gameplay loop is just throwing her out, holding the ability so it hits, letting it charge up my energy, and when the energy's up, just make sure to throw out her ability, switch out to somebody else, and just go, just use this as my main attack grounds while healing my characters. If there's no enemies to really attack, like right for that second, I would have switched to a character who just needs the healing and just have them heal up a little bit more. Again, I'll switch back to Diona throughout her ability. I have the Sacrificial Bow on her right now, so you see the that That's a cooldown reset. Normally, if the cooldown resets for me, even if she already has a shield up, I'll actually send out another shield immediately. Or if I'm in a close fight, I will hold it for a second. Let me just aggro this real quick. I'll just send out immediately to get the energy recharge, and then send out again. Just so I'm getting as much energy back as possible. Then I'm switching out, going to my main DPS, going to my other supports, dropping their abilities. As you see, the shield lasts for a decent amount of time. The shield's down, but her ability was about to come back up. I'll switch back to her, shoot another one, get another shield. And it's kind of the general loop I follow with her. Whenever her ult's up, if I'm in a bigger fight, I'll use it, or if I just need the healing, I'll use it as well. However, that's her gameplay is pretty simple in my opinion. No real extra thing going on. I don't really use her for normal or charged attacks. However, she is an archer, so if you do charge the attack fully, you are getting her cryo damage applied to the that charged shot. Alright, now that we talked about her gameplay loop, let's talk about how I think you should equip her. So I did say that there's two main ways you could play her. The first one I think is the healer role, where you're just making sure that you have her ultimate ready as soon as possible, so whenever someone needs healing, you're able to drop that, and you're able to just heal. As you may have noticed, let me go hurt myself a little bit real quickly. Grab that meteor shard. Alright, there we go. As you may have noticed, when I throw out her healing, it does heal for a pretty large chunk, as well as at a pretty decent rate. I don't find myself, even at very low health, I don't find myself scared that I'm gonna die as long as I have the ult out, as I do feel like it protects me pretty well. And even if you are at very low health, as long as you throw out her shield before throwing out the ultimate, you should be protected long enough that you'll be able to take advantage of the healing. And so once the shield drops, you won't feel like you're low health. You probably would be healed to at least half, or if not more. You're gonna be ready to just keep on fighting. Alright, again, so let's talk about her weapons real quick. As a healer, I think the best weapon on her is a Sacrificial Bow. The Sacrificial Bow gives you energy recharge, base attack, obviously, and then its ability is composed after dealing damage, or after damaging an opponent with an elemental skill. The skill has a 70% chance to end its own cooldown. It can only happen occur once every 19 seconds. Mine is at refinement 4. So it is a lower chance as well as a higher cooldown at lower refinements. However, I still think at lower refinements this is the best bow for her. Again, the energy recharge is big, since you want to have that ultimate up as much as possible, especially again as a healer role. If you're running her as a healer, you want to have that ulta up whenever you need healing. You don't want to be like hoping for the last bit of energy to come through when your characters are already dying. So again, Sacrificial Bow, definitely best in slot, I think, for her healer. Another big thing to point out is that her composed ability, or the composed ability on Sacrificial Bow, does say after damaging an opponent with a skill. It does not say after casting, and because Diona's ability shoots out 5 shots if you hold it, each shot has its own chance of proccing the composed passive, or the composed ability, which means that there's always going to be even higher chance than actually just that 60 or 40 to 80% chance that you see on the weapon, since each one has its own chance. And I almost find it, as long as it's off cooldown, that I will be proccing that and will be getting the cooldown reset. So I think it's really good. However, on the other end, you can play her as a DPS support. I do think her Icy Paws do pretty decent damage, as well as I think her ultimate, or her burst, does really good damage as well, with that constant AoE cryo proc. So if you're going to build her for a DPS, I would say Stringless is probably her best in slot. This is providing elemental mastery, so you could have really good cryo chains, especially with those multiple procs going off from her burst. And then your ability is Arrowless Song. It's just increasing your damage even further for both your elemental skills and your elemental burst. I do only have this at 1 refinement, and that's already 24% extra damage. That's a lot of extra damage coming out of everything she's doing. And then again, that elemental mastery is going to be a lot of extra damage for her abilities, and to be proccing different things like superconduct, again one of the strongest elemental reactions possible, and then as well as freezing and vaporize. Yeah, sorry, I had a hard time remembering the fire reaction. So yeah, it's going to be giving her a lot of extra damage, not only on her own abilities, but on the reactions her abilities will be able to perform. Alright, let's talk about artifacts. There's 2 sets I think are the best sets to run on her right now. We don't have a cryo set, so I can't factor in any idea of what a cryo set might look like in the future. I know there's rumors of a cryo set coming in 1.2, however I won't really be covering that here. So let's just talk about what we do have. The first set I think is really good on her is the Maiden set. Obviously, I run mine as a complete healer, so the Maiden set provides her with the first thing is healing bonus. Your healing effectiveness is increased by 15%, so she's healing people 15% even stronger using her ultimate or her burst. And then her 4-piece set is using an elemental skill or burst, increases healing received by all party members by 20%. So again, when you use your burst for the next 10 seconds, you're going to be receiving a lot of heals. You're going to be really able to max out your allies' health with every single burst you do. As you've seen, my child was able to go from like 5% health all the way to max, and then there's still extra time for me to switch out and get a little bit of health on someone else. So if you want to run her as a healer, the Maiden set is obviously the best in slot. But if you want to run her as a DPS support, since her elemental skill has such a long cooldown, but if you build her right, you're able to have her burst up very often. I do think that the Noblesse set is probably the best set if you're going to run her as a DPS support, as it's going to be giving you increased damage on your elemental burst. That means every cryo proc you will have, every time your elemental burst procs its cryo damage on enemy, you'll see a big 20% increase in that damage, and that's multiple waves of damage able to hit multiple enemies, and can be very strong for your character. As well as you'll be able to provide that team-wide buff of 15%, or actually I think 20% as well. Yeah, the team-wide buff of 20% extra attack for your team every time you use your burst for the next 10 seconds. Yeah, the DPS support, I think the Noblesse set is by far better than anything else, since it's really focusing on, since Diona's kid is really focusing her damage on that ultimate. It's going to make sure you gain the most damage possible out of it, and I think, yeah, that's yeah, you'll be getting the most damage out of it. Sorry, I got caught up for a second. Yeah, you'll be getting the most damage out of her and out of her elemental reactions by going with the Noblesse set. Stats for what I would build her. I go attack on her. I'll go attack on her fans. You also can go HP if you're building her strictly for her healing, since her healing and her shield damage reduction both scale off of HP. HP is a really good stat. If you want her to have a little bit more attack behind her, then I would go attack. But either one is really good on her. For her fans, for her goblet, I would go either HP or cryo damage. Again, for the DPS support, I'll definitely lean towards the cryo damage to get as much out of her as possible. But since I run her as a healer, I do run an HP cup on her just to get even more healing out of it. And then for her circlet, again, I think HP is really good here. But as a healer, or attack, if you're doing DPS support, attack's really good here. But for a healer, there's a healing bonus that you can get on this. I don't have it on mine right now, so I'm just running another HP. Another HP bonus. But the healing bonus is probably the best to get when you're focusing just healing. I never really build her towards crit. I don't really think it's the best way to build her, so I avoid. So I wouldn't use a crit rate or crit damage. But yeah, I build her straight for healing on the last one, so HP or healing bonus. But you can also go attack here if you just want more DPS from her. For substats, I would be looking for HP and HP percent in my substats. Even if you're building her DPS, I would want that to increase her healing in some form. Next, I'll be looking for energy recharge. If you get enough energy recharge on her, just between her E shot, her E procs, and especially if you have if you're running her using the Sacrificial Bow, you can almost always have her elemental burst up, constantly be having AoE damage and heals. It can be really good. So energy recharge is definitely something you want to prioritize. Next, we have Elemental Mastery. This is especially for her burst, since in her burst is doing multiple procs of damage. There's a lot of times that damage will finish a reaction and cause vaporize, cause superconduct, causing freezes. So having Elemental Mastery built on her is really good. And then finally, I'll do attack or attack percent to just increase her overall damage. But I still think that everything, that HP, energy recharge, and elemental mastery are all more important for her than her attack stat. Unless, again, you're building towards that DPS role specifically. Alright, now let's talk about her constellations, as her constellations do change up her gameplay a little bit. The first one, if you have her first constellation, this almost guarantees that you can have her ult up all the time if you build her for energy recharge, since at the end of her ult you get 15 energy back immediately. I mean, you could almost go into your next ultimate pretty quickly. That's really good. Her second constellation increases her damage. So again, if you want to build that DPS Diona, this really increases your Icy Paws damage. It's by 15%, and it also increases the damage absorption by 15% of your shield. So again, that shield's damage absorption scales off HP. So this also scales off HP as well, giving you a larger shield. It has an additional effect I think is really cool. It shows that MiHoYo is thinking about co-op in the future, thinking about co-op synergies, and this is when your paws hit their target. It also creates shield for your allies that are nearby. So one of the first co-op specific abilities that we've seen. That gets me excited to see what else MiHoYo has in store for co-op abilities. Next, we have her constellation that just increases her talents. These have obvious bonuses, and I won't really talk much about that here. Then we have Wine Industry Slayer. I personally don't care for it. I know some people talked about this being really good, but I almost never use her normal attacks. I never use her for a charged attack, but while you're in your signature mix, then the charged attack takes 60% less time to use the charged attack. This is really good if you want to just proc one or two additional elemental effects, but again, I don't think this is the best for Diona specifically. And then we have her final one. I think this is an amazing ability on her. This really takes her from to the next tier of usefulness, because if you're below 50% HP and you're inside her signature mix, you have 30% increased healing coming in. This is easily gonna blow you past that 50% mark, and once you're past that 50% mark, your elemental mastery is gonna be increased by 200. Which again, if you since Diona's signature mix has so many cryo procs on it, you'll quickly be able to react off of those, getting multiple elemental reactions. Really able to take full advantage of this 200% this 200 increase to your elemental mastery. I think it's a great ability, great support ability, great DPS support ability, and great healer ability. It's just great all around for no matter how you want to build your Diona. Alright, but that's everything that I wanted to cover. Just a quick rundown. She plays a very good DPS support or full healer. She creates her shield with her E, heals and damages with her Q, and that's computer controls. I don't know what that is. That's her skill and her burst. So whatever that is on on how you play. A Sacrificial Bow, best all around for her. But if you do want to focus just on DPS, Stringless is amazing for her. And again, Maiden's Noblesse are the best sets, depending on how you're trying to build her. And yeah, that's everything about Diona. Let me know if you had a chance to play her, if you like her, if you use her in your team. She's again been a mainstay on my team ever since being added into the game. I always use her right next to my child, and I think she's a great permanent addition to this game. Really excited for the fact that she's added to the non-rate up banner after this patch, so you'll be able to. So people who don't get her now will always have a chance to get her. And let me know what you think about Diona in the comments. If you stayed this long, please like the video, subscribe to my channel, as I have a lot more Genshin Impact content on the way, and have a good day. Man.